So yesterday we did the Mishnah, and the Mishnah spoke about the second series of three, which is more chamor, that it's even 24-hour fast, and it's also b'malacha, and also the inuyim. And the Mishnah said also he closed the mitzvos, which l'chora is pshita because it's Saturday you're not allowed to wash. It says also berachitza. It's one of the inuyim. Why does it have to say no zachanuyos? We're going to see that today. And then it also there's a series of another 7 fasts that over there is even more Masriyan and oil and Zachanuyos, even the food stores besides Thursday and maybe Monday towards the end of the day. And then the Mishnah continued about after the 13th fast, so then they stop Maso Mata and Benyanu Tieshal and Simcha will see Eres and Nesuin, and not to greet each other. And Yechidim continue fasting until after Nisan. So up to the Gemara on the bottom of Yud Beis and with Beis. Bishlam Akulu is up a little smaller. Sorry. Bishlam, I'm sorry about this. Okay, Bishlam Akulu is the first wide line. Is Butainu, Bechitza, Besicha, Betashmesh Hamita. Everything we understand that it's the things that are pleasurable, and that's why they answered it. All the inuyim, rechitza, sicha, tash, hamita. But how come they made ism malacha? Abu malacha tzavu. Like it's not like on your kippur, so it's also to do malacha, but that's because it's a yontif. But here that they're making tanisim, why should they make ism malacha? It's not pleasurable to do malacha. On the contrary, it's also a tzar. So it's a drash that the Gemara doesn't say any svara for it. How come it should be a malacha? The Gemara doesn't answer the kasha. Why should it be also? But the Gemara says it's a drasha because the pasuk when it talks about its own, it also says atzara. The pasuk atzara means like a gathering, like atzeres means in a gathering. But the Gemara is making a drash to learn it out from Shavuos. Shavuos is called atzeres, also Shmini atzeres. So it says tzom together with atzeres. Katzeres, just like Shavuos. Shmini atzeres. Ma atzeres also basis malacha. F'tainis also basis malacha. So Mamish and Drash, and the Gemara doesn't even explain the svara. Why should it be so? The Gemara remained that it's that we don't stand that it's not a tainug, but it's also just like a Shavuos is also basis malacha. So too a tzom is also basis malacha. Kachu tzom kiru atzara. A tzom is just like atzeres. You might think that it's also from the beginning of the night. Ima atzeres mayota. F'tainis lama mayota by Shavuos. It's also to the malacha from the beginning of the night. Are you going to say by time it's also later on the Gemara is going to say that it's only asr in the morning. It's not asr from the beginning of the night, even though it's a 24-hour fast. But the ism malacha is only in the morning. In the night, it would be allowed to do malacha. If you learn it out from Shavuos, it should be also even at night. I heard from Rabbi Yirmiyah Bar Abba, Amar Kra Isvus Canaan. The end of the pasuk. If you look up on the second white line, so it said Kachu Tzom, Kiwa Tzara, Isvus Canaan. That's the whole part of the pasuk. So it says over there, gathered as Canaan, the elders should come, and the gathering of the elders is not in the night. Amar Kra Isvus Canaan. Dumit Dasifus Canaan. It goes together with the gathering of the elders. Ma'asifas Canaan Biyom, Avsom Nami Biyom. This Tzom and this Isam Malacha. Of course, the Tzom starts the whole 24 hours, but the Isam Malacha that we say at Sarah, that just like at Sarah, that's only from the morning at the time that they have Asifas Canaan. So that's why the Isam Malacha starts the same time that Asifas Canaan starts, and that's going to be in the morning. Because Gemara says maybe that's supposed to be from the afternoon. The word tiara means an afternoon. Maybe by noontime, Saharayim, maybe that's the Sohar, the word the light, tiara. Maybe that's the time that this Canaan get together, and that's the time that Isam Malacha should start. We're saying it's not from the beginning of the night, and it's not from the afternoon. It starts in the morning. The Gemara is saying why? The fact that this Canaan don't get together at night, we understand that everybody's at home, they don't come together at night. But maybe they come together in the afternoon. The Gemara is going to say no, they don't. They get together in the morning. This the way we're explaining it is a supporter of Huna Dama Mitzafur Kenufia. The gathering, everyone gathers, is in the morning. And now he's going to say the Seder Hayom for a tinus. What's supposed to be the order of the day? What do they do by a tinus? From the morning until noon, they inspect the issues of the city, which means that they look into the issues, what has to be fixed up, what are we not doing right, maybe the chinuch is not good, maybe tzedakah is not good, maybe the mikvahs are not good, they look into maybe people are stealing, they look into the issues that have to be fixed up. That's called Asipas Kenim. They get together to see what has to be fixed up. That's the first half of the day. That's what they should do on a timeless, not just to fast. You're supposed to, what are we doing wrong? And to do tshuva. Mikan Velech, the second half of the day, Rivet Yom Akrina B'Sifra B'Tarta, a quarter of this, I mean, the second half of the day is divided into two quarters. The first quarter of afternoon is going to be reading the Torah and Haftorah, which I don't understand why it takes a quarter of the day. It's just, we do it very short. Vayichal and Yeshua Hashem B'Yimatzah, it takes about 15 minutes. It doesn't take a quarter of the day.
A quarter or mean part?
So the whole it comes out that it's only 15 minutes. It's very, like, it doesn't sound like it. You can't, it says like, tell you the whole day. The morning is for this and the next quarter and then the next quarter. So it comes out that it's only 15 minutes. Like we daven, we don't make a whole quarter. We come, whenever we daven milchais, it all goes together with, here it goes very, I don't know.
Unless they're learning after.
Maybe they darshan it, I don't know. But it says that the second half of the day in the afternoon, so the first quarter is going to be for reading the Torah and Haftorah. After that, the last quarter of the day, then we ask for mercy with Daven. Shenema, Vayikumu Alam Dom, Vayiku B'Sefer Torah Hashem Elohim, Revius Hayom, Kama, Revius Misvadim Umishachim Hashem Elohim. Over there it says by Nehemiah over there that when they were made a gathering, so it says over there that they read the Torah of Hashem, their God, for a quarter of the day, and a quarter of the day they were being misvada, confessing and prostrating to Hashem.
Maybe so, including in the reading that the first quarter is gathering in the crowds because there's thousands of people.
No, it always says that it doesn't say like that. It says
each one
it says the knufia, the Safa knufia. Everyone gets together in the morning already, and that the Gemara is going to say also the kniv asifas Canaan. But it says everybody. Rashi says that everybody gets together in the morning already. They don't just come together. I need Rashi says here. Where's Mitzvah?
It also could be a small city. It could be a city of 50 people. Also.
But let's just consider ourselves with the larger groups.
Okay, it doesn't like it. It sounds like the pasuk says here that Vayiku B'Sefer Torah Hashem Elohim Revius Hayom. It doesn't sound like that. Okay, anyway, the Gemara says that the way the order of the day is of a tinus of the morning is gathering, and that's Asifas Kenim, and that's everybody gathers and they look into the things that have to be fixed up. And the second half of the day, the first quarter is going to be for learning the Torah, reading of the Torah and the Haftorah. And the last quarter of the day is going to be for davening, for asking mercy. The Gemara on the next page. Similar.
To what?
Where are you reading?
I'm reading it fourth by the bottom last page. The Kenim Dumia da Sifas.
Dumia da Sifas Kenim. That's what it says. That's what it says. It's similar to Sifas Kenim. The pasuk says together all three things together. Kachut Tzom, Kiruat Tzorah, Isvus Kenim. So Kiruat Tzorah is similar to Isvus Kenim. Just like Isvus Kenim is in the morning and not in the night before. So too the Ism Malacha only starts in the morning. The one on the top says Epuchana. Maybe it's the opposite order. It means only what a pasuk is. It says that half of the day is divided into two quarters, but it doesn't say which half. And you assume that means the afternoon. Maybe it's the morning. Maybe the two halves, the two quarters of learning and davening is in the morning, and the asifa is only in the afternoon. He still didn't prove that the asifa is in the morning. Maybe it's in the afternoon. Epuchana. The Gemara says that shouldn't enter your mind. I could prove that the davening and the learning is in the afternoon, and the mela, the gathering, is in the morning. A different pasuk in Ezra over there, it says over there talking about Ezra when he came to Eretz Yisrael and he found out that some people had married non-Jewish women, so they made a big gathering, and it says that the Chared, the Divrei Hashem Elokei Yisrael, the people who were scared of the word of Hashem, the Chared. So it says over there that they came to me, and then in the afternoon, I spread out my hands to Hashem. In the afternoon, Minchas Erev, Efesa Kapay al Hashem. So it says that the davening was in the afternoon. So that's what Rashi says. If davening is in the afternoon, and we said that there's a half of the day that's dedicated to learning and davening, and it says here that this was in the afternoon. So Mamela, the gathering must be in the morning. So that's the Gemara's Maskana, that the Seder Yom is that the morning is for the gathering, and the afternoon is for learning, and then another quarter for the davening. And the Ism Malacha, we learn out that it goes together with the Sifas Kenim, which is from the morning. So that's to sum that up. There is Ism Malacha. The Gemara says it's not a tzar. It's not a tainuk to do work. It's a tzar, but still it's also similar to Atzeres, a drush in the pasuk, and that starts from the morning. not from the night before, and not only from the afternoon. It starts from the morning, similar to Asifas Canaan. And we brought a drasha to show that that's the Seder Yom, that the Asifah is in the morning, and the afternoon is divided into two quarters. The first half of the afternoon is for reading the Torah and Haftorah, and the last quarter of the day is going to be for
Supplications.
supplications. The Gemara on the top, on the fourth line, new sugya. And this is going to be talking about washing. The Mishnah says V'chitza Zasa, and this is going to be the sugya now. The Mishnah said that in the second series of three, so it's also the Inuyim, and it says V'chitza Sich and Nilas Asandal, and it says no Chatzos. We mentioned that it says two times. It says they V'chitza Zasa, and also they close the bathhouses. Bathhouses were for hot water. You didn't need a bathhouse for cold water. So bathhouses were for hot water. The Gemara goes into the sugya about hot water and cold water by Novel, by Tanya Sibur. That's the next sugya. Rafram Bar Papa. I'm Rav Chisda. So Rav Chisda speaking. Kol Shum Mishum Evel. Anything that has to do with mourning. Kigon Tisha B'av Ba'avel. Tisha B'av is mourning. Besides it's a fast day, but it's a day of mourning, and also a novel who's mourning on a relative. Then he's not allowed to wash both hot water and cold water. It's not allowed to even wash with cold water. We're going to see a difference if it's his whole body or even a part of his body.
What is the Evel? You just said
Ovel.
Evel, and then
Anything which is about mourning, like Tisha B'av
like an
and an
ovel.
actual ovel, an actual
I
mourner.
see.
So then it's also even cold water. It's also to wash with hot water or cold water. But it's called shumatainik. But if it's nothing to do with avelus, it just has to do not to have the lights like a tiny tzibur, where he's not mourning, but he's davening. He's minimizing himself from tanugim. So from worldly, he's going to Hashem more. It's the day of tshuva. So then the chamanasa b'sonim with that. Then it's only also to wash with hot water. That's called the tanug. But cold water is mutter. So is there a difference? Just to focus that the issue is cold water. Hot water is no difference. Hot water is also rechitza on all these days. Tanya Sibur also, like it says in the Mishnah, rechitza is also. But since it's not for mourning, it isn't for the purpose of mourning. So then cold water is mutter. But avelos, Tisha B'av or avelos. So then it's also even cold water. And that's the halacha. Just to point out, the Gemara is not going to be so simple. The Gemara is going to juggle it. That's going to be the halacha. That things that have to do with mourning, like Tisha B'av, and then it's also even cold water.
I thought on a regular fast that you could use hot
So we're not talking about this. So we said here that there are different levels of fast. There's like the first three, then the second three, then the seven. So on some days it's not Asur Rechitza. The regular fast days, it isn't Asur Rechitza. But the days like Tisha B'av, and then it's Asur, the 5 Inuyim. So it's Asur Rechitza, and it says even cold water. Amar Rav Idi Bar Ravin. Afanan Amitinini. Wants to bring a proof that on was mutter to wash with cold water. I come from our Mishnah that on the tiny Sibur, it's mutter to wash with cold water. It says in the Mishnah, the Mishnah says by us, you close the bathhouses and houses for hot water. That means hot water is as mutter. Abai doesn't understand proof. What should he do? Close the river? It's like, I'll tell you, it's us to wash cold water also, but that we can't close up. There's no place to close up the cold water. If it would be us cold water, it still wouldn't be able to say anything. The Mishnah does talk about closing up the bathhouses, which are hot water, because that's what they had to close down. But there is no place to close down the cold water. You go to the river, close down the river, so it's no proof. So Ravidi Bar Ravin was the one who said this proof on the top line. I'm Ravidi Bar Ravin. So Rav Shisha Bar Ravidi is coming to explain his father. Abba, my father, Achi Kashaleh. His proof was the following proof. Mechti Tanan. It says you're not allowed to wash. So why did the Mishnah say again that you close down the bathhouses? It's said you're not allowed to wash. The fact that the Mishnah says to close the bathhouses is to come to explain that the Issa Rechitza is only hot water, similarly to the bathhouse. That's what you close down. If the Mishnah would have said that everything is Asa, so it said Rechitza is Asa. It says you're not allowed to wash. It wouldn't be necessary to say close the bathhouses. Of course you close the bathhouses. No one's coming. It must be to tell you that only hot water is Asa. So that's true. That's a good proof, and the Gemara is happy with that. And that's the halacha that on the tiny Sibur it's only Asa cold water. It's not Asa hot. It's only Asa hot water. It's not Asa cold water. The Gemara goes on to a different aspect that we spoke about, that Tisha B'av is Asa cold water also. Now he wants to prove that point. The first point we proved was that on tiny Sibur it's only Asa hot water, not cold water. That's good. We had a nice proof in the Mishnah that it says you close the bathhouses. And now we're going to go to the other aspect. The Tisha B'av is Asa cold water, and he wants to prove that. Let me say that it's Asa to wash with cold water on Tisha B'av. It says Kol Chag Yitfilah Sovin bein Tisha B'av, bein Yom Kippurim. That those that go for Tahara purposes, so then the Yom Kippur also. We don't pass like that, we'll see soon. But this Brisa said that if he's doing it for mikvah, he's doing it for Tahara, not just for washing, so then he's allowed to do it as usual. Both Tisha B'av and Yom Kippur, he's allowed to go to the mikvah. And the Gemara wants to know what kind of mikvah is this, a hot mikvah or a cold mikvah? It's a hot mikvah. There is no such thing as a hot mikvah. Tefillah v'chaman mi'ika, is there a hot mikvah? She'ubeninu. Argues, it says that the problem of hot water in a mikvah is because the only way to have hot water, in those days at least, would be that it would be heated up in a pot. So then you put it into the mikvah. So you have no way of having a hot mikvah. It's always going to be drawn water. Drawn water is possible for a mikvah. According to Argues, there's no problem with a hot mikvah, just that it shouldn't be shuvin. Nowadays they have ways of doing a hot mikvah without doing shuvin. They put a heating element, they put a radiator into the mikvah, and it gets hot. So they have a hot mikvah without
What
it.
about the springs of Tiberi or something like that?
That's something else. We'll get to that soon. But that's also going to be, a regular mikvah that we have nowadays, hot mikvah, so it's no problem because it's not shuvin. But some don't have these two words. These two words shuvin and some take it out.
Which word?
Shuvin ninu. So the word says tefillah b'cham mi'ika. Such thing as hot mikvah means there's a problem having a hot mikvah. Some hold you're not supposed to have a hot mikvah, not because of shuvin. That hot mikvah is like a gezerah, that if you're going to have hot mikvah, people will say, what's the difference between the mikvah and the bath house? It's all the same. They don't. So some are marked not to go to a hot mikvah. Nothing to do with Shabbos. Shabbos is another issue about washing.
We're talking about morning. You don't want to oh, it's a fast, minus even Chamin.
This is the Gezerah.
Nothing to do, what we're talking about now is nothing, what I just said now, nothing to do with mikvah. Is there such a thing as hot mikvah? Nothing about, nothing to do with a regular day, Tuesday, a regular day. Is there such a thing as hot mikvah? Is the hot mikvah kosher? So everybody knows, of course, you go hot mikvah, cold mikvah, warm mikvah, whatever you want, you get all the choices. So it's not so simple. Here the Gemara says that you can't have hot mikvah because it's shuvin, and that was the old problem. Nowadays, no problems because you can make hot mikvah without doing shuvin. But some don't have this gersa. Some say tefillah b'chama mikvah. There's no such thing as a mikvah of hot water, not because it's shuvin, because you can't have hot mikvah.
This is Gezerah.
Because xera that you might think there's no difference between the mikvah and a bathhouse. So there are those that are marked not to go to not to use a hot mikvah. Besides Shabbos and other issues about hot. Okay, machlokas over here. Anyway, the Gemara says, what kind of mikvah are we talking about? That it says that the chayvei tfilos, if they're going to the mikvah, because they're tamei, they can go on Tisha B'av and Yom Kippur. Is it a hot mikvah? No such thing as a hot mikvah. Ella la, but it's only, it must be that it's a cold mikvah. And it says only mutter to go because he's going for the mikvah, for a tara, but for washing it will be yoseh. Chayv tfilos in shachmin alo, only because he's chayv tefillah, he's immersing himself. That's why it's mutter. But if it would have been stam for washing, it would have been aser. So you see that it's aser to wash in cold water on Tisha B'av and Yom Kippur on Tisha B'av. Good proof. It says here that for the mikvah he's allowed to go on Tisha B'av. We could deduce it's talking about cold water because hot water you never have a mikvah. So it's talking about cold water, and it's only mutter because he's immersing for tara. If it would have been for washing, it would have been aser. So you see that it's aser to wash the whole body in cold water on Tisha B'av. So it's a good proof to what we said that Tisha B'av was aser in cold water. But the Gemara is going to reject the proof, even though that's the
Right
halacha.
now we're saying, but we would just, the exception would be those that are five.
The exception would be,
Chayv in Tevila.
yeah, for immersion is mutter,
Uh-huh.
but not for washing would be aser. And you see cold water is aser, so it's a good proof. But the Gemara rejects the proof. The halacha is like that, so let's hold on to that because that's the halacha. But the halacha is not going to be that it's mutter to go to the mikvah on Tisha B'av, but the halacha is that it's aser to wash with cold water on Tisha B'av. But the Gemara is going to reject the proof. I could say that it's talking about hot water. I might say that there's no issue to washing cold water at all on Tisha B'av. It's talking about hot water. And what's the case of a hot mikvah? You have the naturally hot springs. So you have a case of a mikvah that's hot water. They couldn't usually do that because you have to do she'umin. You have to draw the water in order, put it into a pot in order to heat up the water. But if you have naturally hot water, so then
it's not drawn.
So it's not drawn, and you can have a mikvah.
He was worried about that because they're about making hot water, and then in case it'd be drawn water, but not so for the.
Right. So it could be that Chametz is the case where it says that for regular washing you're not allowed to go in because it's enjoyable,
Right.
but for the mikvah it is mutter. So it's no proof that Shabbat was also to wash in cold water. But the Gemara says the Yachia doesn't make sense to the rest of the brayso. So it says Ema Sefer, continue the brayso. I'm Rab Chanina Baskana Kohanim. Kedayu Beisel Lokeinu Lav V'Ralav Tefillah Pamachas B'Shana. the house of our God, the Beis Hamikdash, is worth it to lose one tefillah once a year. That means that don't go. The Tanakh said that's mutter for Chayvit tefillahs to go on Tisha B'Av, and he says no, that the Avelos of Tisha B'Av should miss even a tefillah, even though it's immersion. Also, don't go to the mikvah. So if you say that one wants to say, so he argues, and Tanakh says no, and that's why we pass. We don't go to the mikvah on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. But here it's talking about Tisha B'Av. So what kind of mikvah is he talking about? If he's saying Chamit Tveria, the only shows only Chamit Tveria. Cold water, you're allowed to go even if you want to wash. So then it doesn't make sense. You can't go to the Chamit. Tanakh says you can go to Chamit Tveria, and he says you can't go to Chamit Tveria. So don't go to Chamit Tveria. So go to regular cold mikvah. If you're saying that it's more for anybody to wash in cold water, so then Rabbeinu Skana shouldn't say lose a tefillah. He should have just said don't go to the hot springs for the mikvah on Tisha B'Av. But on the contrary, go to a cold mikvah. It must be that a cold mikvah is also going to be also according to him because you're not allowed to wash in cold water, and he's not differentiating between a mikvah or just a sun washing. So you see that cold water is usher. So back the proof is on again. And he still rejects. He says it's all one case, but there's no cold water. There's only hot spring available. If he's not going to go to the hot spring, he's not going to go to the mikveh at all. So it could be that whole discussion of the Tanakama, Rabbeinu Skana was just talking about hot water, but cold water could be that it's mutter, so it's not a proof. What happened just now? The halacha we said was that on Tisha B'Av it's us to wash in cold water. We tried to bring a proof from the case of the mikveh. The Gemara rejected the proof, and you could be matchas talking about hot springs and there's no cold water available. But just again, the halacha is going to be like that it is us to wash in cold water on Tisha B'Av, and only have this discussion is about a mikveh, and we pass like Rabbeinu Skana not to go to the mikveh on Tisha B'Av either. Tashma. Now the Gemara is questioning the whole halacha that we said that. What's the Gemara going to be now? We're going to bring a proof now that it's. I forgot. Let's see the Gemara. We'll see what the Gemara. Each time the Gemara goes different aspect. We did two aspects already. One, the first so far the first aspect was that it's mutter on a tiny sea to wash in cold water. And the second aspect was if it's usher on a Tisha B'Av to wash in cold water. The Gemara was trying to support it. It didn't work. But those are the two aspects we spoke about so far. Now there's going to be a third aspect, I think, but I forgot what it is. Let's see. Tashma, Abraisa, Kisha Amru, Usher b'Malacha. This we mentioned before. This was the Brisa where the Gemara knew it from. When we say it's also to do malacha on the tiny tibur, it's only also from the morning. But in the night of the fast, it is more to do malacha. Before the Gemara learned it out from Masivas Kenim, that's the reason why we learned it out
Second
from.
half of the day. No.
No, from the
Or
morning.
the night preceding the day.
Is mutter. In the morning, it's also. That we're not going to talk about. We talked about it already before. Ukshamru also not to us right now, but it's also to wear shoes. It's only also when you're in the city, but on the road, it's mutter to wear shoes because he needs to. On the road, it's hard to go on the road without shoes. Of course, if you have something which is not leather, so use that. But the case here says they had nothing else, so it's mutter to wear shoes on the road. Okay, so what does he do? When he goes out on the road, then he puts on shoes. When he comes back into the city, he takes off the shoes. Okay, that's not again to us. Now it says in the Brisa of Sham Rasa Berchitza, La'amru Elav Gufo, called Gufo, when it's also to wash, it's only also to wash his whole body, but it is mutter to wash his hands, face, hands, and feet. That's the Brisa. The Brisa continues one more word. So too, whatever we spoke about now, Tainis Sibur also applies to a person who's in the Chayrim, Nidur. He also is not allowed to do all these things. And Ovel also is not allowed to do all these things. What we spoke about Malacha, we spoke about wearing shoes, and we spoke about Rechitza. And it equates over here that an Ovel and the Tainis Sibur is the same. My love Akulu, when it says at the end, the last line that said that so too it applies to an Ovel, that applies to everything that we spoke about. And the last thing we just said was about Rechitza. It said by Rechitza it's also called Gufo, but his hands, face, and feet is mutter. Now, what are we talking about? Hot water or cold water? With my skin on Ilam of Bachamin, it's talking about hot water, and Ovel is allowed to wash with hot water. One of the other Ragla. If you read the Brisa, and it's talking about hot water, the Brisa says it's only us, and it says same thing applies also by an Ovel. You're going to say that an Ovel is mutter to wash his hands, face, and feet with hot water. Is that permissible? It's not us even to put his finger into hot water. You're not allowed to do anything with hot water. An Ovel is not allowed to use hot water at all. So the fact that the Brisa says that it's only also his whole body, but his hands, face, and feet is mutter. So it must be talking about cold water. Elalav with name. And what does it say? That so what are we going to learn out from here? That on the Tanis Sibor, it is usher cold water. That's what the Gemara is attacking. This kasha is attacking what we said before. We said that Tanis Sibor was mutter cold water. I mean, we made a deal back to the first section we spoke about that in this brisa. Rav Chisda said that Tanis Sibor was mutter. We would arrive from the Mishnah that it says he closed down the Merchat. So only hot water is usher. Cold water is mutter on the Tanis Sibor. Here it says that Tanis Sibor is the same as an ovel, and it says that there's a difference between Panav Yod of Raglav and the whole body. Only it's usher his whole body, but Panav Yod of Raglav is mutter, and it's not talking about hot water because it says here that an oval is the same thing, and an oval is surely usher hot water, even hands, face, and feet, even a finger is usher in hot water. So it's talking about cold water, and it says that the whole body is usher. So this is against Rav Chisda. It's a kasha on Rav Chisda who said that on the Tanis Sibor was mutter to wash his whole body with cold water. Elav B'tzonei, there's a kasha on Rav Chisda. First white line. No, maybe not. We can say Rav Chisda. Lo Lam B'chamer. We're talking about hot water. The kasha was hot water that you're not allowed to even oval can't even put his finger into hot water. With the kasha the answer is Ashorokoi. When it says these words, just here in the screen is on the top line. The Gemara thought that it's going in the whole brisa. The whole brisa earlier spoke about the last thing was about washing. Before that, I spoke about shoes. Before that, I spoke about malacha. And the Gemara thought when it says that all these halachas apply to ovel also, the Gemara thought it's going on the whole brisa. The Gemara is saying no, it's not going on the list halacha. It's not talking about rechitza. Rechitza is different. There's a big difference between an ovel and a tiny sibur as far as rechitza, because ovel is also hot water completely and cold water also his whole body, and the tiny sibur is mutter to wash with cold water his whole body, and hot water is mutter panav yad of raglav. So this v'chinat hamotzei b'mnod of is not talking about rechitza. This comparison that the brisa says that whatever the tiny sibur also applies to an ovel, that's not true as far as the last halacha. The only is true is the first two halachas about malacha, that and as far as nilas hasandal, over there it applies to an ovel also. But this halacha and all the other inuim that it says earlier, but about rechitza, they're not the same, and that's going to be how we find the difference between ovel and a tiny sibur. An ovel is also to wash with hot water completely, and with cold water, it's going to be usher his whole body, and by a tiny sibur, it's mutter to wash with cold water his whole body, and hot water is only going to be usher his whole body. Panav Yad of Raglav is going to be mutter. At the end of the day, at the end of the year, we'll sum it up again, the halachas l'maisa. But here, at this point, the Gemara saved Rav Chisda, and there's a difference between an ovel and a tiny sibur. So what are we saying now? That an ovel is usher to wash with cold water. And that the Gemara is now going to attack his whole body. And the Gemara is not going to attack that
More
now.
chomer than Tanis.
Right, tiny sibur is mutter to wash with cold water. Ovel is also to wash with cold water. And now the Gemara is going to attack that. Second white line, Tashma, the Gemara is going to try to prove that even the ovel is mutter to wash with cold water.
Right?
Yes. Tashma, Damar Baba Cohen, Mishma Bosia Cohen, Maisa Besa Bona, Shobra Bosia Reb Chanina. The Rochas Basan, called Shiva. The Gemara says a story that the sons of Reb Bosia Reb Chanina died, and he washed in cold water all 7 days during Shiva. So you see that ovel's mutter wash with cold water, wash his whole body. So you see that ovel's mutter. The ovel is also to wash with cold water. The Gemara says something else. Over there were one morning after the next. Like it says, Meisubana, his sons died. They didn't die simultaneously. One died, he was sitting Shiva, and then when he was ready to get up, and before he was ready to get up, a second died.
So the first 7 he did not wash.
So then it's more permissible. That's if there's available one after the next, so then there's more permission. And the Gemara is going to show other cases where permissive to an ovel who's already having one available after the next. The Tanya if an ovel became an ovel again, one after there's a leniency that even though he's not allowed to cut his hair, but he's allowed to wipe the load of his hair with a razor, not the regular haircut. Or Machabis Ksusa, but mine is allowed to also wash his clothing. We didn't talk about this yet. That Abba was not allowed to wash his clothing, but here he could wash his clothing with water. And that Amr of Chisda, the Tav will not be misbelayim, the mind will not be nesef. When we say that take a haircut doesn't mean with a scissors. It means with a razor. It's not a neat job. Also, b'mayim, when it says he can wash his clothing only with water without any detergent. So too, the Gemara is saying that he's allowed to wash with cold water, even though regular oil is not allowed to.
In Tachpua here would be like he was pressed,
Tachpua,
Kofel.
why,
Kofel. What's the word Tachpua?
one after the other. Take it means immediately. I think
Oh, immediately, thank you.
Okay, one came after the next, I think. So what so far? That an Avel is also to wash with cold water his whole body. And the kasha was that Rabbi Yosef Chanina did wash. The answer was over there because it was an Avel. What is the word? One after the next. There's a word for that.
It's consecutive.
Consecutive. That's it's consecutive. Two Avelos consecutive. So then they make him the second one already that he's allowed to do some leniencies. One of them is going to be there's allowed to wash with cold water. So we have Rav Chisda. All this was Rav Chisda was talking. What did he say? That Avel is also to wash even with cold water, and if it's a tiny sibur, then it's mutter with cold water. Also, we saw that as far as hot water, there's also a difference. That by Nobel, it's by Tisha B'Av, by Nobel, it's also even to put his finger into cold water, into hot water. I'm sorry. And by tiny sibur, it says only also to wash his whole body with water. You put a bit of a rag, is going to be mutter. So in both aspects of hot water and cold water, the tiny sibur is more lenient than Avelis. On the bottom line, the question is going to be if Rava agrees or Rava argues. So far we had Rav Chisda. Bottom line, number Rava, he argues. He says that Avelis is no issue of cold water. He's a lot of water, Novel's allowed to wash with cold water, even during Shiva. Just like Novel's allowed to eat meat and drink wine. So we didn't ask all kinds of pleasurable things. So also he's allowed to wash with cold water. Hot water, not cold water, yes. And he argues on the Gemara before. The Gemara said before that Ovel is also with cold water. And he says that Ovel's mutter in cold water. Kasha from the Brisa. Amid Beis. Ein Ogeres. Visha. Ein Ogeres Visha L'Navalos Atzma B'Mei V'Lavia. A Bogeres, as a girl who's of marriageable age. In those days it was 12 and a half. Nowadays, maybe not 12 and a half, but whatever it's called marriageable age. So she's not allowed to make herself disgusting when she's in Avelis. Rashi says one shot that even when she's over on her father died, and she's in the middle of Shiva, she can't make herself disgusting because she's in Shidduchim. And people are going to come and they're going to see it. They're going to say, disgusting girl. They're not going to be ready her a Shidduch. So they made leniencies in Avelis that even though and the halachas of Avelis would have limited her, but she's not allowed to. She's not allowed to make herself disgusting. Anara Risha, but and the diak is only because she's a Bulgaria, she's a marriageable age. But if she wouldn't be marriageable age, then she would make herself disgusting. What are we talking about? The Gemara thinks that it's talking about washing, that we're going to permit for Bulgarians to wash, even though a regular Abel is not allowed to. My love, aren't we talking about the issue of washing, and we're permitting for Bulgarians. That's what we don't permit for a regular woman and Avelis. Elaim of Achamin, and a Bulgarians Risha, the Gemara doesn't think that we're going to permit the Bulgarians, even though we have this consideration that she should not make herself disgusting, but not with hot water, because hot water is us even to put her finger in, and that sounds like it sounds like something serious. The Gemara says like that we're not going to be mat even for Bulgarians. It must be talking about cold water. Is that not talking about cold water? And it says only had to for Bulgarians because of this consideration that she should look good, but otherwise it will be usher. So don't you see that it's true that Avel is not allowed to wash in cold water? And Rava took the position that Avel is allowed to wash in cold water. But the Gemara rejects the proof. Maybe something else. Not talking about washing. Washing, you're right that cold water, everyone's allowed to wash. Hot water, no one's allowed to wash. The difference between a Bulgarian and a other girl is going to be all kinds of makeup. Kichol is going to be in makeup, and Pirchos is going to be making her hair. That a regular Avela should not do. And that's what we're going to permit her to do in order that she should look good, even during the Avelis. But that's true. Cold water will be with it for everybody. So we have machlokas going on, and the Gemara tried to prove that cold water is usher. The Gemara didn't succeed, so it's still going on in machlokas. Try to bring a proof, which we mentioned already before, on Damar Aleph, that maybe it's mashman the story over here that an Avel is allowed to wash in cold water. The story we just brought in Damar Aleph, that when Yosef Chanina was an Avel on his sons, he did wash in cold water. So you see that an Avel is allowed to wash in cold water. Again, the Gemara says what we said in Damar Aleph. No, Amri, Hasam v'shatachvu avelav zachazeh. That was a different story because he became a novel consecutively. That's why he's allowed to wash in cold water, but it wouldn't be a raya that a regular level is not a wash in cold water. The Tanya, this is all repeat. The Tanya tachvu avelav zachazeh, ich b'sar meikul b'tar, achab b'susa b'mayim, am rav chisda, b'tar v'lo b'misperayim, b'mayim v'lo b'nesa v'lo b'chol, v'lo b'ohel. That if a person became a novel consecutively, one after the other, so then he's allowed to lighten his long hair with a razor. He's allowed to wash his clothing with water. Rav Chisda explained, with a razor, not with the scissors. It shouldn't be a nice job. And with water only, not with detergent. Anyway, here too, he's allowed to also wash with cold water, even though usually he's not allowed to. But it's not a proof. So the machlok is going on. If I was allowed to wash in cold water or not, he tried to bring a raya from this story. Not a raya. It could be over there. It was only because it was 2 consecutive mornings. Now goes a different version, and everything's going to become on the same page now that Rav agreed to Rav Chisda. Again, the beginning of the sugya started, Rav Chisda says that Rav is not allowed to wash with cold water. Rav seemed to argue on the bottom line, and this Ikadami now is a different version than Rav, that he agrees to Rav Chisda that Avel is not allowed to wash with cold water. Ikadami Amar Rav, Avel Asa B'Tzonin, Kol Shiva, that he awesome, like we said, Rav Chisda. And the Gemara here says, Ma'ishtam B'Basa V'Yayin. Now we have to explain, so how come he's allowed to eat meat and drink wine and he's not allowed to wash with cold water? Over there, they permitted him in order to be able to take away his worry. It means the person is an avelo, so they call it emotional achila rikshit, an emotional eating. When a person is emotionally troubled, so it helps him to eat. So they permitted that he should eat wine and drink wine, eat meat, and drink wine during his avelos in order that he should be able to ease up his emotional difficulties. But that's not a reason to permit him to wash with cold water. So it is usher. So Rav Aquinas does agree to Rav Chisda that it's usher for noble to wash in cold water. And again, there's a lot of repeat over here because we had all the sodas already, just juggling it the other way. The Gemara wants to bring a raya that cold water is usher from the rice we just had on top of the page about a Bulgaris. Let's bring a proof to him before we wanted to ask a kashi. It's going to be a proof that in a Bulgaris Rishol and Avalatzma Rishol, it says in the Brisa that a Bulgaris, a girl who's ready for marriageable age, she should not make herself disgusting. But a girl who's not in marriageable age should. It can't be that we're coming to be mater of Bulgaris to wash with hot water. That's usher. It must be that talking about cold water, and only Bulgaris is mother, but everybody else is usher. So that'll be a proof that Aval is usher to wash with cold water. But again, the Gemara is matcharaya, lo kichul pirchos. It could be that we're talking about makeup and hairdo. Over there, we're coming to say that. Right, that's what Rashi says. But it wouldn't be a raya to the issue of hot water and cold water. Maybe it's not talking about that. But again, the halacha is going to be that cold water is usher. So then that's going to be the halacha also that a Bulgaris, a woman in a marriageable age, is allowed to wash with cold water, even though a regular level is not allowed to. Kichul pirchos also. These kind of things also be mutter and advisable for a girl in shidduchim, that even though she's in avelus, she should make herself beautiful as much as they're permissible.
What happens with the nevushim? He also has some
I forgot if it talks about avelus also. Maybe it does. Rav Chisda is also more as a side point over here before we finish up the sugya. Rav Chisda is also meres avalas betechboses. That's a side point that. But the Rav Chisda says the same way that kichul pirchos is also for that a woman is not allowed to beautify herself. So too it's also to wash clothing also for an avel. The Rebbe points out over here that the Brisa before said beferish that it's also to wash clothing. So the word he doesn't know tzarachi and god why the Gemara sees a chiddush over here. Surely an avel is not allowed to wash clothing. And again, that's a question what the Rav Chisda needed a raya for. It says so openly in the Brisa. But anyway, also the horse is called Shiva. Okay. Now the Gemara just sums everything up, and now we're going to get to halacha, and this is going to be the halacha. Ilchasa, Avalas Alichos called Kufo Ben Muhammad Ben Mitzonim. If Chisda was right, that Aval is not allowed to wash his whole body with hot water or with cold water. Can't even take a cold shower, cold shiva. Avapon of the other ragla, but if he's not doing his whole body, just hands, face, and feet, then then it's only us hot water. And we said hot water is us even to put his finger in. But cold water is mutter to wash his hands and face and feet, just not his whole body. And we said before that a tiny sibur is mutter to wash with cold water. The issue of a tiny sibur is only hot water. And over there also we said that Panav Yad Bagel is mutter. Everything goes down a notch by a tiny sibur or less than avelus. Aval lasach afilu kol chu aser, but to anoint oneself and avel even a little bit is aser, not only the whole body, even a little bit. If he's just getting rid of the dirt, that's why he's using the oil, the anointment, in order to get rid of dirt. Then it's permissible for an avel. End of the sugya. Sum it up. By tiny sibur, it's only also like it says in the Mishnah, Merchatzo, it's only hot water. Cold water is mutter legamri. Hot water is only also the whole body. But if you have the raglav is mutter. By a novel, everything's more chomor. Cold water is also the whole body, and hot water is also even put his finger in. But it is mutter to wash part of the other raglav with cold water. Aga, we had also a halacha about Bulgaria, so a girl in marriageable age should wash her even during Avelos and Pirchos and what is it called? Kichul and Pirchos is also for a novel, but for a girl in marriageable age, Bulgaria, then it is mutter.
Is the same then as we said earlier at the top of the page? Is this the repeat of it, or does this change?
If you look each time, the more looking at it from a different angle. One said that it's mutter, so that's going to be proof to him. We said that it's usher, then it's a kasha, and the Gemara is using the same thing. So we came out that the halacha that the ovel is usher with cold water called gufo, and for Bulgaria is mutter, and one of the other raglav was also mutter by novel to wash with cold water, but hot water is also legamri. Over there is no heter.
So like by Titus Esther and Sober Davis, you take a shower, you can't use hot water?
No, again, we said that tiny sibur of the is only the tiny sibur of the chamuras, like Tisha B'Av. The regular fast doesn't have those yisurim. There are those that are machmer. It says if there's we had once upon a time that b'shas shalom, not b'shas shalom, that it could be the regular tanesim also if they are xeris of the goyim, and that's a question. And some people are machmer. The Mishnah says about nefesh is machmer on those tanesim also not to do not to wash. But minadin it's mutter. Minadin it's mutter to wash on other tanesim besides Tisha B'Av, and there are those that are machmer. Like a bal nefesh, like a chumrah, not like a chasidus, not minadin, not that it's also minadin. Now the Gemara says a whole new sugya about the tefillah that we do on a tinus. So we didn't have.
Excuse me, Rebbe. On Tisha B'Av, we don't use cold water either, even for a little bit.
And that's different than it says here by an oval. That's true. That an oval, it says it's only also hot water, loshit yodo, and cold water, and hot water is also, and cold water is also only called gufo, and you're saying that by Tisha B'Av it's also even loshit yodo, even cold water. Yashikov. Thank you. So is anything difficult in our Gemara, or that the Gemara didn't discuss? The Holy Gemara didn't go into that. It didn't go into that point. The Gemara didn't talk about Tisha B'Av in this point. The Gemara didn't say this aspect about Tisha B'Av. Do you see
Well, we just said that Tainus Tzibur is a mutter b'tzonin.
And Tisha B'Av is going to be more common than that. I say tiny sibur, and Tisha B'Av is going to say no, because again, Tisha B'Av is like Avelos. That's you're not asking tiny sibur. Tisha B'Av is more common than a tiny sibur because it's Avelos. But you're saying that you're pointing out that this aspect of Avelos is even more common than a regular Avel. A regular Avel we allow him with cold water, part of the other raglav, and by Tisha B'Av not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Gemara didn't say anything about an oval. Here it says again. Here it says, "Tinus siv." What did it say? Where just now? Back up a little bit. By an oval, asalichos kol gufo. Upon the raglav is mutter. Betzone. That says beferish, and he's saying that Tisha B'Av is also. But the Gemara didn't say it differently, did it?
No, but it's confusing that between Tainus Tzibur and Tisha B'Av. That's the.
No, so that the Gemara started off that there's a difference because that's the whole Gemara. That here is Avelos, there's no Avelos. Tisha B'Av is an Avelos issue, and the regular Tainus Tzibur is not an Avelos issue. So that the Gemara itself distinguished the whole time.
But you're saying that today that the halach is that a Tainus Tzibur you're allowed b'tzonin, but we don't have Tainus Tzibur today.
The Tainus Tzibur is mutter b'tzonin, and he's saying we don't have these. We don't have Tainus Tzibur. We don't do these Tanaisim for Geshamah, so we don't have that application. And the only Tainus Tzibur we have is going to be Tisha B'Av. That's and over there it's also for the morning also because the morning it's Avelos. Therefore it's also even more than Avelos. It's also even cold water. Good. Okay. Yashakar. Thank you. The next sugya talks about Anenu. The new sugya. We finished with the whole issue of Rechitza, and now we start about Anenu. Close to the Tanisa. How do we mention the tefillah of a tinus? Tefillah's tinus. That's Anenu. How do we do that? Adrei Rav Yehuda Rav Yitzchak Grei. What is that? Close to the Tanisa. How do we mention the tefillah's tinus? Anenu. Adrei Rav Yehuda Rav Yitzchak Grei. It's the word Adrei. They say means Hinig. He led him. I don't know how they translate that. But Rav Yehuda told the son of Yitzchak, Yachid, Shekibel, all of Tainus, Mispalish or Tainus. So he still didn't tell us how to mention it. He just said that even in the Yachid, when he accepts upon himself a Tainus, voluntary, so he says Anenu. Hechanomra, where does he say? This is I guess this is where he's saying Hechanomra. Where the davening does the Yachid say Anenu? In Gol Rofe. Between the bracha of Gol Yisrael and Rufainu, we don't do this. We'll see in a second. We don't do this. But here it says that even the Yachid also inserts another bracha, Bracha Tashem Oneh Beis Sarah, between Gol Yisrael and Rufainu, like the Chazan does usually. Maskef of Yitzchak, some say of Yosef, B'chi Yachid Kovei Bracha La'atzmo. A Yachid is going to say a bracha on his own. Rashi says, is he chashav so much that they made a special bracha for him? And he argues. He says, no such thing as a Yachid adding on a new bracha into Shemona Esrei. Elam Rav Yitzchak B'Shemet Tefillah. Yitzchak argues on Rav Yehuda, and he says, no, that the Yachid just inserts it in Shemona Tefillah like we do, that we don't say a special bracha on Beis Sarah. In the middle of Shemona Tefillah, he says, Anenu, and then he continues, Ki Ato Shemea, and he ends off, Bracha Tashem Shemona Tefillah. And that's how we pass it. You don't make a special bracha. He does says it is part of Shemona Tefillah.
This is a Yachid.
Right.
In Shemona Esrei.
Yes, as we do. Meisvei, Kasha from a Brisa. The Brisa wasn't trying to prove that he also says a bracha on his own. It says in the Brisa, Ein ben Yachid and Tzibur, Ela Shazem Espal Shemona Esrei, Shazem Espal Shasrei. There's no difference between a Yachid and a Tzibur, just that a Yachid davens 18 and a Tzibur davens 19. Now, Rashi points out that we always have 19 because we have a Lam Al Shinim, Lam Shumadim, so there's always 19. That's Rashi says we're not talking about. We call it Shemona Esrei. You see, we still call it Shemona Esrei, even though we have 19 brachas, we say Shemona Esrei. That's not a kasha. We're not talking about that. But here it says that
He's
a
talking
Tzibur,
about 19 or 20.
You're saying 20.
right, it will be 19 and 20. But the Gemara calls it 18 and 19. That a regular Shemona Esrei is 18, but the Tzibur davens 19. What's 19? That's extra bracha of Oneh Beis Sarah. And here it says difference between Yachid and Tzibur. The Gemara says, who's this Yachid and Tzibur? My Yachid or my Tzibur? Doesn't mean Elam Yachid Mamish for Tzibur means Shliach Tzibur. Does the Tzibur mean to say the Shliach Tzibur? The Shliach Tzibur davens only Oneh Beis Sarah. No, he davens much more. Ani Shasrei, as in the Abahu, he davens 24. We didn't learn it yet, but it's going to say later on that on a tiny Tzibur, which we don't do nowadays, but they added on 6 more brachas to the Shemona Esrei. 6, 18 plus another 6. So the Shliach Tzibur has 24. He doesn't have 19. Who has 19? Allah Vachikam. I must mean both are talking about a Yachid. And it depends what kind of tainus he's fasting. We had before that there's two kinds of tainusim. There's like the easy fast, that's only a 12-hour fast, the daytime, and doesn't have all the inuyim. Then there's another fast, like the second series, that starts at night, and it has all the inuyim. And a yachid could also accept upon himself such a kind of a tainus chamur. Over there, yesterday, the Gemara said that a person, when he's bekabel tainus, he shouldn't just say, Areni b'tainus. He should say, Areni b'tainus yachid. He has to specify, because if he wants to, he could accept upon himself a tainus chamura. So the Gemara thinks to say that the Brisa must mean the difference between what kind of tainus the Yachid is fasting. Is he fasting a cow or is he fasting a chamor? And we're going to say the difference is, when he says Anenu, does he just insert it in Shemona Tefillah or does he make a special bracha out of it? Allah Bachi Kama, the Brisa must mean, Ein b'Yachid the kibbul Allah tainus Yachid, the Yachid shekibul Allah tainus Tzibur, El Shazem Espal Shemona Esrei, V'Zem Espal Shasrei. The Brisa must mean that both of them is talking about a Yachid, not a Shliach Tzibur. Shliach Tzibur has 24. We're talking about a Yachid. And he's only saying Anenu. But there's a difference if he's fasting a tainus Yachid, which means easy fast, or he's not, or he was makabel on himself a heavy fast, one of the chamuros. It's called the tainus Tzibur. He's not a Tzibur, but he's makabel on himself a tainus Tzibur, which means the heavy category. And over there he's going to daven 19 brachas. That means that it is such a thing as a Yachid making new bracha ba'oneh beis Sarah. Before the Gemara didn't differentiate. He had Machlokes Rav Yehuda and Rav Yitzchak. One says he always says it in a special bracha. One says he always says Shemona Tefillah. But the Gemara is saying here it says there's a difference. If it's easy fast, then he's going to say it in part of Shemona Tefillah. If it's going to be a heavy fast, then it's going to be a bracha for itself. But you see, Al Kapanim, there is such a thing as a Yachid davening a bracha by himself. And Rav Yitzchak said, is there such a thing? You see, there is such a thing. But the Gemara is matche. No, that's not the case. It's so much Shliach Tzibur. A regular Yachid always davens only Shemona Tefillah. It doesn't make a new bracha on their Beis Sarah. No, Shliach Tzibur. The case here that it says 19 is the Shliach Tzibur davening. Ozi Kasha is supposed to daven 24, but the Kasha Tzibur hasn't Rav Maslei. The answer is the Gimel Taniyos. Just one more line to do. The Gimel Taniyos Rishonos, first white line, the Lekes and Arba. We're talking about the first set of fasts. Means we said before there's 3, 3, and 7. The first one is a Tainus Kal, and the second one is a Tainus Chamor, and then the 7 is even more. So even though there's going to be a din that the Shliach Tzibur davens 24 brachas and the Shemona Esrei adds on 6 more brachas, that's only going to be in the Chamor. But Gimel Tani is Rishonis, the first set of three, then even the Tzibur also doesn't have those 6 extra brachas. That's only going to have Ona Beis Sarah. And that's how the Gemara says at this point, that only the Shliach Tzibur has Ona Beis Sarah. The regular Yachid always says Anenu in Shemet Fil, and that's what we pass him. The Gemara, we'll stop here. The Gemara is in the middle of the sugya. It's going to talk about when does the Shliach Tzibur say 24. We'll leave it at this point, that the Gemara says it's only in the later fast. But the first set of 3, it's only the regular 18 plus one more on that base Sarah. That's the end of the sugya for today. That's the sum of the halachas that we learned. The Gemara said is when you find this halacha on the second series of Tanesim, it's not called a tainug, but you learn it out from the pasuk that says kirut tzom, kachut tzom kirut tzom. It's like a shvuas, and that's where we learned this halacha from. It starts in the morning. It's not at night. It's not in the afternoon. It starts at the same time as a sifas kena, which is in the morning. And that the Gemara also went to trouble to explain that the way to say the Hayom of Tainus is that you find by Ezra that in the afternoon there was learning and davening, and that's the minchas ha'erev, but the morning was for the asifa, and that's what we do. And they're supposed to be ma'ayin in the middle of the tzibur, and we don't do that really, but they're supposed to. That's what it says by someone. They're supposed to be that the morning should be dedicated to be ma'ayin b'middle the musaf. They should figure out what has to be fixed up. I guess the person should do that also.
Of the generation or the whole?
Yeah, it says asifas kenim, and probably whoever could do that is supposed to do it. If it's going to be, and a person on his own also should do that. Probably also during the time, he also should do ma'ayin b'middle the atzma. He should look at himself. What has to be fixed up. The Gemara on top of the page then went into the subject about washing, and we'll just go to the halacha. The halacha is going to be that by, I'm just helping out if I get it wrong, that by Tisha B'Av or Avelos, it's also even cold water, cold gufo, and Avel is mutter hot water, one of the other raglav, and that I've listened pointed out that Tisha B'Av is also even cold water, one of the other raglav, even a finger. That the Gemara didn't talk about, but that's the halacha. But as far as an Avel, here it says that Avel is only also to wash his whole body, both with cold water and with hot water. And cold water is, what did I say? Maybe I said it wrong. His whole body is also even cold water, hot water, and one of the other raglav is mutter with cold water, also with hot water. In contrast, the Gemara says that a tiny sibur, that they're talking about here in our Mishnah, this tiny sibur where it's also rechitza, so then it doesn't have to do with morning, and therefore it's mutter with cold water lagamri. You can even wash his whole body. The Gemara also came out with some term over here, just to point out that says about a mikvah. There was an issue about going to the mikvah on Tisha B'Av. Machlokas about that. We pass on like Rabbi kind of calling him Kedai Beisalkeinu not to go to the mikvah on Tisha B'Av. And also came out issue here about having a hot mikvah, which our Gersa says is only also if it's shuvah. Nowadays they avoided that problem. They have no problem of shuvah nowadays, but there is a Gersa that says that it's also to have, it's not a kosher mikvah if it's hot mikvah, even if it was not made with a shuvah. And that's another issue about having a hot mikvah. It said also Agav that Isam Malach is only in the day, not at night, which we had already before. Needless to sandal on the road would be mutter if he needs to, but when it comes to the city, he's supposed to take off his shoes. Tachfu Avela, if a person was consistently, what's the word? Not consistently, what's the word? Consecutively. So then there are more terim in that second time of the Avelos that he'd be allowed to cut hair with a razor, not a nice haircut, and also to wash his clothing with water only, and also the Gemara said to wash with cold water. A Bulgaris, a girl who's in marriageable age, should not do all of the Hilchas Avelos. She should wash with cold water. And also, Kichol V'Pirkos, makeup and things like that are here, even though in regular level should not do that, but she should. Basav Yain is mutter for meat, to eat meat and drink wine. And the Gemara says the difference between that and cold water is because of his emotional state. It's good, we allowed him to eat meat and drink wine, but not a reason why he should wash with cold water. And the next sugi was about Anenu, and that was Machlokes. If the Yochad says Anenu as a bracha by itself, he passes like a Bitzchak that says no, he says it in Shemiyat Tefillah. There's a Kasha from Raisa that said that there's a 19 bracha sometimes, and that's, when is that? The Gemara thought that the Shliach Tzibur always has 24, and that the Gemara says that the Shliach Tzibur was only 24, and the later fast, but the first one of 3 is only going to be on Ona Beis Sarah, But the Yachid always davens Anenu in Parashmeh Tefillah. That's what we're asking. We'll be back with Hilchos Chanukah in about 5 minutes.
We're on the top line, right?
We're in the
Top
first
line?
white line now.
First one. We only have an